Recently, I've started to want to tidy up around the house a bit more, and in the kitchen we've got this basket where all sorts of things get put. Wallets, mail, cards, and I thought it's time to do something about this. So I thought we'd turn this into this. A bit nicer. I start off by gluing up a block of Sapele and Oak together and letting it cure for about 24 hours. Then off came the clamps, and I realised straight away that I need to do something about those raised edges there. Now I don't have a fancy thickness of planer, so instead out comes out the good old block plane. Now this did take quite a lot of time, but I did find my bench hook was a really helpful tool to have here. They're really easy to make and they come in useful for so many different projects. Once one side was smooth enough, I flipped them over. I did the same on the other side. Now there was a little bit of discoloration from the glue there, but that came off quite nicely with enough planing. You've got to be quite careful about which way you plane, think about the grain of the wood here, but it turned out okay. Once that was all sorted, I took it over to the chop saw and just cleaned up both edges. Once that was done, I got out my phone because I wanted to make sure there was a nice rabbit cut in the front, which would be wide enough for my wife and I's phones. Now we both use fairly thick cases, quite white leather cases, so I traced a line, tried to line it up with where that piece of Sapele runs, and then marked it off the edge of my router bit. Then found a router bit that was about the right width. I chose this 1/2 inch bit because it was pretty much perfect. Then I lined up my router with the edge of that line. I used a little router guide. I found it really helped because it had a nice straight edge. Tightened up the nuts on the guide, gave it a quick slide to make sure it lined up. Then I gradually pulled it towards me. I realised it was moving around all over the place. So I swapped out the clamp for a slightly firmer one. There we go, a lot better. Now this was my first time using a router. The line turned out fairly straight, but there's definitely room for improvement with practice. After that, flipped him over, clamped it back down again, and then repeated. Took me a while to realise that you need to push the router away from you when you're doing this, not back towards yourself. On a side note, I did find that using the twist clamps rather than the squeezy quick release clamps worked a lot better for holding the piece in place. There we go. Alright. Here I'm just blowing the drill bit to make sure it's just right before I do the drill holes for the dowels. Now I decided on drilling around about 0.7 centimeters in from the long edges, and I wanted to follow the lines of the Sapele just for the sake of the look of it. I ended up drilling every 7 centimeters or so, so there were 4 lines for each of the Sapele pieces. I did have a little bit of a play afterwards with some nail just to make sure it was a good spacing. There we go. Next up, I got a piece of hardwood dowel, stuck it into the holes so it's nice and tight, and then got a piece of paper roughly the same size as an A5 envelope to get a rough idea of how high I wanted the dowels to be. Now these will be the supports for the letters and the cards that are going to hang in the back, so to make sure they're the right height. I went for about halfway up. Then took it back over to the bench hook, marked it off, and then started sawing. I then used each sawn piece as a little register for the next piece, so they're all the same length. There we go, nice pile of 8 pieces of dowel. Now I show this, I tried filming this but got the angles wrong, but I did then sand the ends just to taper them off to make them go in more easily. I started off with 80 grit on the orbital sander and just went over all the surfaces and the edges. Tried to go down the channel as well, which was a little bit tricky. I then swapped over to 180 because I didn't have anything in between, which gave it quite a nice smooth finish. I then went back with a chisel, so I realised that right down at the bottom of those routed grooves hadn't gone perfectly. There we go. Right, Pop the dowels into the holes, got a spare piece of wood that was lying around, and my small hammer, and then gently tamped them into place. Because all the holes are the same height with the drill press, that meant that all these dowels ended up being the same height once they'd gone in as well, so no need for adjustments. Also, the fit was really tight, so I didn't need to use any glue either, which is quite nice. I do like it when you get a nice tight fit. Just taking them outside for a quick spray to coat them. Now I'm using spray polyurethane there, but you could use spray lacquer. Propping them up on a piece of wood I had lying around there, just to let them dry off. And here's the finished product. Letters go in the back, cards and phones in the front. And I did cut this to be the right height for 2 phones to go along. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching the video. It was certainly a fun project to make, relatively simple and not too many tools needed. If you enjoyed it, why not like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully we'll see more of the same in the future soon.